Hello and welcome to the Garden of the Gods Visitor and Nature Center. My name is Jennifer. I'm a park interpreter here, and today I would like to introduce you to one of my very good friends here at the Visitor and Nature Center, Theiophytalia kerri. This is a very rare, very unique dinosaur that was found here at the Garden of the Gods area and nowhere else in the world. So let's get to know her a little better. So Theiophytalia kerri is one of the rarest and most unique dinosaurs in the world. To date, only one example of her has ever been found in the world, and her story is just as unique as she is. And our story begins with James Hutchinson Kerr. He's a visiting professor at Colorado College. He was also a geologist, but from all accounts, he was more interested in oil and petroleum and gas and the mining of that as opposed to paleontology. Nevertheless, in approximately 1878, he found what he described to be the portions of 21 sea monsters. He stored them, but also wrote about them to his colleagues back at Yale University. That caught the attention of another gentleman called O.C. Marsh. O.C. Marsh was a noted paleontologist of the day and one of the few experts in this new science of dinosaur bones and fossils. O.C. Marsh traveled out, saw the skull, and declared this to be a Camptosaurus of Jurassic age. Now, O.C. Marsh himself discovered and identified Camptosaurus. They're very prevalent here in Colorado. And in fact, O.C. Marsh probably thought this fossil came from the very common Morrison Formation known throughout Colorado for its dinosaur-rich finds. Lots of animals have come out of the Morrison Formation. O.C. Marsh looked at it, said Camptosaurus, and then shipped the skull, not the other bones that Kerr found, back to Yale University, where essentially they were forgotten. Kerr eventually left the Colorado Springs area, and with him, he didn't place really any emphasis on his find. And with him was the knowledge that right here in the Garden of the Gods area, a new dinosaur had been found, or at least a dinosaur. They didn't think it was all that new yet in 1886. Fast forward over 100 years, and in 1994, construction on the Visitor and Nature Center began. Two park interpreters, just like myself, were busy at work trying to figure out new geological exhibits for this brand new building. And everybody loves a good dinosaur, so these interpreters traveled to the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, where they spoke with the paleontologists on staff at the time. And they were shocked to learn that somewhere in someone's notes, there was a reference to a dinosaur being found in Garden of the Gods. These interpreters had no idea, really no one in Colorado Springs had any idea that this had happened. These intrepid interpreters did more research, wrote some letters, and it just happened that one of the paleontologists at the Denver Museum was Kirk Johnson, who is a Yale alum, and Yale is where our fossil was resting, forgotten all of these years, over 100 years. Johnson was actually able to hand carry the real fossil back to Denver, where his colleague, Dr. Ken Carpenter, and himself were able to study and examine it. They made a precise replica or a cast of the fossil, and that's what we are able to exhibit here today. The original fossil is back cataloged safely at the Yale Peabody Museum. Upon making the cast, both of these doctors noticed that something was a little bit different. This was not the traditional Camptosaurus cast or skull that they were used to seeing. So they made a note, Dr. Ken Carpenter made a note to review this when his schedule allowed. Meanwhile, the Visitor and Nature Center opened proudly with a new exhibit featuring Campy, Garden of the Gods' very own Camptosaurus. And we have pictures of Camptosaurus elsewhere in the Visitor and Nature Center. But a Camptosaurus is a very specific Jurassic animal. That's important for later. 2006 came around, about 10 years after the Visitor and Nature Center opened, and lo and behold, Dr. Ken Carpenter and his assistant, Catherine Brill, were able to re-examine this original fossil of James Kerr's, and they've decided, after careful research, lots of data points, very specific comparisons to known Camptosaurus, this was not a Jurassic Camptosaurus, but indeed a Cretaceous iguanodon. and not only a Cretaceous iguanodon, but a brand new species, Theiophytalia kerri, is what Dr. Ken Carpenter renamed this amazing find. Theiophytalia is Greek, it means belonging to the Garden of the Gods, and kerri honors Dr. James Kerr, the original founder of the skull. Now, very side note about Dr. Kerr, we don't know where exactly he found this fossil. We know it's in the Garden of the Gods area. He wrote approximately 2 or 3 sentences on this amazing discovery. And it was in 1878 in the rocks near Garden of the Gods, I found portions of 21 sea monsters. Very nearly a quote on that. And he did not pinpoint, it was 1878, he couldn't take a picture, he didn't make any notes, and placed very little emphasis on this find. So to this day, we do not know where this original skull was recovered. We just know it was in the Garden of the Gods area. And so now we have Theiophytalia kerri. Another fun fact, if you've been paying attention to everything I've been saying, is that I've been using female pronouns for our girl Theiophytalia. As of this moment, it is impossible to determine the gender of the dinosaur by just portions of the skull fragments. There's no way to correctly identify that. But I figure by referring to her as female pronouns, I've got a 50-50 chance of being correct, and to misquote a very famous book, movie, perhaps documentary, Jurassic Park, all the dinosaurs in the park are female. For more information on the Garden of the Gods dinosaur, Theiophytalia kerri, please come to the Visitor and Nature Center, pick up our brochure, A Case of Mistaken Identity, or our Junior Ranger booklet is full of fun facts about dinosaurs and the park. Marsh saw this skull fragment. I don't like any of this stuff. So delete all park, and this is available for